proven solutions to reduce violent crime.
Without objection, so ordered. And Mr. Silberman, I'd like to remind you that the CR we're going to all have an opportunity to vote on tomorrow restores that $1 billion in funding. So you'll have an opportunity to vote to give the money to the DC Council that you just
Mr. Chair,
mentioned.
how did it get out in the first place? Was that?
I don't know, but I've been a very vocal advocate to get the money restored. So it's I don't know. No one has ever explained that to me.
That does not include funding.
But you'll have an opportunity to. You all will all have an opportunity to vote to restore that funding tomorrow. So, all right, Chair recognizes Ms. Green from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move to table the motion to subpoena. Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he lied on ABC about the identity of the man that Tyler Robinson that murdered, assassinated, martyred Charlie Kirk. He lied and said he was MAGA. Tyler Robinson was not MAGA, not one bit. He was part of Antifa. He was in a relationship. He was in a relationship with someone who identified as furry and trans, and this is an absurd lie, and so I move to table the motion to subpoena.
So, Mr. Chair, since typically this is non-debatable, I do have a point of inquiry because it seems like what we just heard from the gentlelady out of Georgia was her debating why we should table it. So I feel like we should engage. We should all be given an opportunity to engage in debate about whether or not it's,
parliamentary procedure. It's not debatable.
But the issue was that the gentlelady from Georgia decided to go on a tirade.
Well,
so at a very minimum,
let Mr. Bell. He did more than announce the title of the UC and the.
Well, my
publisher.
question is about this motion to table, the motion that was on the table. So I would, at a very minimum, ask that the minority be given equal time.
We'll
to
just
respond.
try. How about we just hold off on the motion to table and let's get back to asking questions. Everybody good with that? Can we or what?
Was there no motion submitted then?
On a point of order.
Withdraw the motion for a little bit or not? It's up to you.
I'll withdraw it until time needed to bring it back.
Okay. All right. Are you satisfied, Ms. Crockett?
So long as the minority gets equal time as Ms. Green.
All right. Okay.
When she brings it back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Bell from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ranking Member, Mayor. Good to see you again. Attorney General Schwab, I want to extend my gratitude to your office. When I was prosecutor, we had a very tough case that actually involved a police officer defendant, and you all helped us work with the victim in that case to a resolution that both parties were happy with, particularly our victims, and I appreciate that. And so I have a couple questions that I want to talk about. One, I think a point needs to be made between the role of the National Guard and what they do and actual policing, and those are two different roles. And I think a lot of folks don't understand that difference. A 20-year-old with a gun in the military is taught how to kill. Police officers have to do a whole skew of things, including de-escalation. And so I think that it's important that we talk about that. And so my first question, and I'm short on time, Mayor, you were asked a question about the resources and what you would do with those resources, and you were cut off. Could you quickly finish that answer? That was earlier.
The resources with regard to our budget?
Yes.
Yes. So in order to close the $1 billion gap, we looked across our government. So we had to cut citywide contracts related to everything from mental health services to the contracts to give our employees raises, most notably MPD and fire and EMS.
And so law enforcement would be included in that, obviously, and is
Yes.
a priority, but there's also other things that a mayor is responsible for.
Absolutely, including shifting spending that should have happened in '25 related to affordable housing.
Thank you, Mayor. And Attorney General, can you speak to how over-policing and temporary enforcement tactics have addressed or failed to address the root causes of crime in D.C.?
Well, as anybody in law enforcement knows and anybody prosecuting cases knows, the level of trust the community has with law enforcement is essential. We need witnesses to feel comfortable coming forward. We need victims to recognize that they can come forward. And that trust between law enforcement, our MPD, and communities all around our city is something that we have worked very hard as a city to build over time. But like so much, it can be broken very quickly. And I worry very much about the distrust that has been caused by the recent events to communities who worked very hard to trust their MPD and vice versa.
And I think people also have to understand the cost of sustaining the National Guard in a major city like D.C., or now we're hearing even in my hometown of St. Louis, is astronomical. To send our troops who are trained, who are supposed to be protecting the homeland, to be coming in and doing the policing work, when we could take a fraction of that cost, pennies on the dollar, invest that in local law enforcement who is actually trained, and give them the resources that they need and keep people safe for fractions of the cost. And so it's just interesting to me that my colleague would talk about defunding the police when the big ugly bill actually defunded the police. It cut funding for local law enforcement, and I don't hear my colleagues saying anything about that. And so also there were some, with respect to serious crimes, carjacking, I know that was an issue. What has D.C. been doing to address those issues?
Well, my office is prosecuting every case, every carjacking case, every armed carjacking case where we have sufficient evidence to meet our burden of proof. They are difficult cases to make from an evidentiary standpoint, from a witness perspective, and yet more than 84% of the cases that MPD brought to us of carjacking last year we prosecuted. So we need to hold young people accountable and make sure they face consequences when they're engaged in carjacking.
And Mr. Jackson, with the remainder of my time, thank you for the work that you do. Can you speak to strategies you have found to be the most effective in actually curbing recidivism rates in our juveniles?
Well, we know that one of the most important things you can do is invest in victim services for those who have been traumatized by violence. As I said before, there are 24 states suing the Trump administration for withholding $1 billion for victim service funds through the VOCA Act. But we know that the best way we can reduce violence and recidivism is by investing in those who are most at risk and those who are most vulnerable, whether that's community violence intervention, victim services, mentorship programs, employment-based programs, all of which are under siege or have been cut by this administration.
Thank you. And with respect to victim services, I could not agree with you more. It's so important. Sometimes what gets lost in the argument is we do focus on arresting serious and violent offenders, which is so important, and also alternatives to incarceration for low-level offenders struggling with addiction and mental health. But we also got to be laser focused on our victims, and that impacts so many of our communities. I thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Pursuant to the previous order, the chair declares the committee in recess for 5 minutes. We plan to reconvene in 5 minutes.
I'm never.
If you all need another break, feel free to take it real quick. The committee will now take up Mr. Khanna from California's motion to subpoena. I recognize Ms. Green.
Mr. Chairman, I move to table the motion to subpoena.
Okay, the motion is not debatable. As many as are in favor of tabling signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The table is agreed to. The committee will now resume.
Request a
Mr.
recorded
Chairman.
vote, please.
A recorded vote is ordered. The clerk will call the vote.
Mr. Jordan? Yes. Mr. Jordan votes yes. Mr. Turner? Mr. Gosar? Yes. Mr. Gosar votes yes. Ms. Fox? Yes. Ms. Fox votes yes. Mr. Grothman? Yes. Mr. Grothman votes yes. Mr. Cloud? Yes. Mr. Cloud votes yes. Mr. Palmer? Mr. Palmer votes aye. Mr. Higgins? Mr. Sessions? Aye. Mr. Sessions votes aye. Mr. Biggs? Aye. Mr. Biggs votes aye. Ms. Mace? Aye. Ms. Mace votes aye. Mr. Fallon?
Aye.
Mr. Fallon votes aye. Mr. Donalds? Mr. Perry? Aye. Mr. Perry votes aye. Mr. Timmons? Mr. Burchett? Aye. Mr. Burchett votes aye. Ms. Green? Aye. Ms. Green votes aye. Ms. Boebert? Aye. Ms. Boebert votes aye. Ms. Luna? Aye. Ms. Luna votes aye. Mr. Langworthy? Aye. Mr. Langworthy votes aye. Mr. Burleson? Aye. Mr. Burleson votes aye. Mr. Crane?
Aye.
Mr. Crane votes aye. Mr. Jack?
Aye.
Mr. Jack votes aye. Mr. McGuire?
Aye.
Mr. McGuire votes aye. Mr. Gill? Aye. Mr. Gill votes aye. Mr. Garcia?
No.
Mr. Garcia votes no. Ms. Norton? Ms. Norton votes no. Mr. Lynch? No. Mr. Lynch votes no. Mr. Krishnamurthy?
No.
Mr. Krishnamurthy votes no. Mr. Khanna?
No.
Mr. Khanna votes no. Mr. Mfume? No. Mr. Mfume votes no. Ms. Brown? No. Ms. Brown votes no. Ms. Stansbury? Ms. Stansbury votes no. Mr. Frost? No. Mr. Frost votes no. Ms. Lee? No. Ms. Lee votes no. Mr. Kassar? No. Mr. Kassar votes no. Ms. Crockett?
No.
Ms. Crockett votes no. Ms. Randall? No. Ms. Randall votes no. Mr. Subramaniam? No. Mr. Subramaniam votes no. Ms. Ansari?
No.
Ms. Ansari votes no. Mr. Bell?
No.
Mr. Bell votes no. Ms. Simon?
No.
Ms. Simon votes no. Mr. Min? No. Mr. Min votes no. Mr. Walkinshaw? No. Mr. Walkinshaw votes no. Ms. Presley?
No to table, yes to subpoena.
Ms. Presley votes no. Ms. Talib? Ms. Talib votes no. Mr. Chairman?
I vote aye. And how has Mr. Timmons been recorded?
Mr. Chairman votes aye. Mr. Timmons is not recorded. Mr. Timmons votes aye.
And how has Mr. Higgins been recorded?
Mr. Higgins is not recorded. Mr. Higgins votes aye.
Will the clerk please add the total?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 24, the nays are 21.
The motion is tabled. Before I recognize Ms. Green, I'm going to recognize the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I want to thank Representative Khanna for the motion, but I also just want to just say that the chairman and I have been talking throughout the last 30 minutes or so, and we're both going to try to work together on an effort to bring in Mr. Carr in front of the Oversight Committee. And it's of interest to both the majority and the minority. And so we're going to try to move forward in a bipartisan way to get it in front of the committee. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I have a UC.
I do too.
I'm going to recognize Ms. Norton for unanimous consent.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article on the cut to DC's local budget, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Chairman, while I know you oppose the cut, Republicans keep saying today that their fiscal year 2026 continuing resolution fixes the $1.1 billion cut they made to DC's local budget, which consists entirely of local funds in the March CR. They are misleading the public. The Senate passed Senator Collins' bill to restore that funding in March. It has been sitting on the Speaker's desk since then. Republicans can never undo the last several months.
We'll enter into the record that statement. So it's without objection, it's entered. I recognize Ms. Crockett for unanimous consent.
Yes, Mr. Chair, since I wasn't allowed equal time to debate, I have a UC. It is from, it looks like Yahoo News. It says, Charlie Kirk suspect's grandma says family is all MAGA.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair recognizes Ms. Green from Georgia.
Mr. Chair, remember I have a UC as well.
We'll recognize you next time. Chair, Ms. Green, it's your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can assure you that the 22-year-old man, Tyler Robinson, that murdered Charlie Kirk is not MAGA. His family may be Republican, but all of the evidence that is being presented proves that he is a far leftist, very much integrated in online groups that are linked to Antifa. He was in a relationship with a biological male, so-called furry, whatever that is transitioning to be a fake woman. He was not MAGA, not one bit. That is a complete lie, and it's an insult to every single Republican and person that identifies with those type of politics. We will not tolerate it, and that is the exact type of language that is getting many of us death threats day after day, and led to shootings on the baseball field where Steve Scalise was shot. This is what led to President Trump nearly being assassinated this past summer. This is what has led to Charlie Kirk being assassinated. And so I just want to give a warning there. We're not going to tolerate that anymore. You know, something else we're not going to tolerate is crime. On August 11th, President Trump announced major steps to address the out-of-control crime in the district. Thank God, because this is my 5th year in Congress, and living in D.C. and working here has been a nightmare. It is. The crime is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And let's talk about some of that. Since President Trump thankfully brought in the National Guard, carjackings have decreased by 87%. Nearly 1,200 people have been arrested, including known members of MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. Those are both foreign terrorist organizations. By the way, many of them came across the border while Democrats controlled this country in the past 4 years. Federal law enforcement seized nearly 120 firearms and busted a drug trafficking ring attempting to smuggle fentanyl, PCP, and cocaine into D.C. A joint effort by ICE and MPD arrested an illegal alien previously charged with sex crimes against a child. D.C. went 12 days without a single homicide. Can you imagine that that's something that the National Guard had to be here to do? It's unbelievable to anybody that is right-minded. U.S. Attorney Pirro reported that 88% of arrests made between the start of the federal deployment on August 11th and August 25th resulted in charges being filed. This is substantially higher than in 2024, where the Biden-appointed U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves charged suspects only 57% of the time. That's because he was busy chasing down MAGA grandmas that went into the Capitol. So I've got a simple question for you. Mayor Bowser, do you prioritize criminals or the victims?
I prioritize law-abiding D.C. residents, visitors, and workers.
So that would be law-abiding citizens and victims. Do you support the police, Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson, do you prioritize criminals or victims of criminals?
I believe in swift and certain justice. And
No,
if
I asked you
somebody has committed
either
a
one,
crime-
victims of criminals, of crime, or the criminals themselves. Which one do you prioritize?
As I understand the question, victims.
Victims. Do you support the police, Mr. Mendelson?
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Schwab, I'll ask you the same questions.
Unfortunately, hurt people. So sometimes victims are victims one day and
So
are
you
perpetrators
prioritize the
next day.
criminals, is that what you're saying, over victims of crime?
I prioritize making up my city as safe as it can possibly be.
I'll take that as criminals. Do you support police, Mr. Schwab?
Of course, we work very closely with MPD every day.
Mr. Jackson, the same questions for you.
Definitely prioritize victims, and I stand with the 24 states that are suing the Trump administration for withholding $1 billion in victim service funds.
So you're against cleaning up crime in D.C. Thank you for that. I've got an article here. The D.C. Police Union head is the biggest cheerleader of Trump's D.C. police takeover. So the police here in the district support the efforts and the help from the president. However, I've got a quote here from Mr. Mendelson. You call the union celebrating Trump's takeover just despicable. You literally attack the police in your statements. You're calling
That's not correct.
the union supporting the president and the National Guard here, helping them every day on the streets. You're quoted as saying that's just despicable.
You're taking that out of context. I criticized the president of the FOP because he is a liar.
Oh, so you are against the police. Thank
No,
you for clearing that up.
no.
Also, I have
President of the
one
FOP.
last thing, Mr.
President
Chairman.
of the FOP, not the police.
I reclaim my time. Lastly here, Mr.
Gentlelady's
Mendelson.
time's expired.
You,
Gentlelady's time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Bell.
Mr. Chairman, I have a UC request.
Okay, state your.
I would like to
hold
enter
on.
for the
No, no.
record.
All right,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry,
Mr.
I'm
Chair.
sorry, Ms. Green. I recognize Bell. That's on me. I apologize. We'll get you on the next one.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I request unanimous consent to enter into the record the September 9th, 2025 article from the LA Times titled Kennedy Commission Child Health Report Ignores Gun Violence, the Leading Cause of Child Death, which calls out the Trump administration for ignoring
Without
how
objection,
gun
so
violence
ordered.
kills more children in this country than any other cause, and the administration ought to be embarrassed by that.
Without objection, so ordered. And I,
I think Ms. Crockett's unanimous.
Ms. Crockett's next.
Do you have a UC?
I'll recognize Ms. Green, then Ms. Crockett. Ms. Green, do you have a unanimous consent request?
I do, thank you. For the record, Phil Mendelson's post here says repealing our laws is not liberation. Republicans in Congress can't be trusted. They took $1 billion from us, are moving more than a dozen bills, rolling back home rule, and are trying to take away our elected independent attorney general and micromanaging our legislative process. I hope everybody watched Democrats vote against the vote that adds $1 billion back in for D.C. Thank you.
Without objection to order, Chair recognizes Ms. Crockett.
Yes,
for,
I request
UC.
unanimous consent to enter into the record this September 16th, 2025 article from Time titled Trump Called for a Crackdown on the Radical Left, but Right-Wing Extremists Are Responsible for More Political Violence, which calls out the game the president is playing, in which he creates a fictional problem while downplaying the real history of far-right violence against the American public from the Oklahoma City bombing to January 6th. I got
Without
another
objection,
one.
so ordered.
All right, the next one. one is for, it's an article from September 12, 2025. Article is from Democracy Docket titled, "I Couldn't Care Less. Trump's downplaying of right-wing violence continues long pattern," which calls out the game the president is playing in which he creates a fictional problem while downplaying the real history of far-right violence against the American public.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes our newest member, Mr. Walkinshaw from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to express my gratitude to Leader Jeffries and Ranking Member Garcia for the opportunity to join this committee. And Mr. Chairman, I look forward to working with you and members on both sides of the aisle as we conduct our important work. My role here gives my constituents in Virginia's 11th District, which is home to one of the largest concentrations of federal employees in the nation, a voice in conducting oversight of the federal government at a time when the Trump administration's reckless DOGE cuts have undermined the effectiveness, accountability, and integrity of federal operations and threatened the livelihoods of the federal employees, contractors, and small businesses that I represent. I am firmly committed to protecting both the critical services our government provides to everyday Americans and the dedicated workforce behind them. With that, I want to thank Mayor Bowser, Chairman Mendelson, Attorney General Schwab, and Mr. Jackson for taking the time to be here today. I also want to welcome, we have a number of other members of the City Council who have joined us. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all for your service. 10 days ago, I was a local government official as well, serving on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and that's a role that gave me an understanding and respect for the importance of the work that you do as local officials. Local government is the most accountable level of government because the decisions you all make directly and immediately impact your constituents' quality of life. And I know that your constituents, like mine in Fairfax, are not shy about telling you all what needs to be done or done differently. As President Reagan said, that government is best which remains closest to the people. And you all are closest to the people you represent, not us. As Mayor Bowser said in 1973, Congress passed the D.C. Home Rule Act to, among other things, grant to the inhabitants of the District of Columbia powers of local self-government. To achieve this goal, the Home Rule Act expressly gives D.C. residents the power to elect their mayor, legislative body, and attorney general. Some of my colleagues, however, while praising the benefits of local autonomy and authority elsewhere, seek to strip that autonomy from D.C. residents as part of an effort to support a federal takeover of our nation's capital by President Donald Trump. Another stated purpose of the Home Rule Act, and I haven't heard this mentioned today, was to, quote, relieve Congress of the burden of legislating upon essentially local district matters. Yet at a time when Congress should be focused on very urgent national matters, we are trying to micromanage D.C.'s local affairs in furtherance of President Trump's attempt to consolidate power. The American people are facing serious challenges. Our economy is faltering. Inflation is rising. Tariffs are driving up prices and job growth is stagnant. And unless this Congress acts, tax credits that help working families afford health care will soon expire. In my district and the districts of everyone here today, tens of thousands of people will see their health care costs skyrocket. And meanwhile, as has been mentioned, President Trump continues to cover up the Epstein files, and a government shutdown is looming. In the face of all of this, how does the majority choose to spend its time? By interfering in D.C.'s local government and further disenfranchising 700,000 Americans. They claim it's in the name of public safety. We've heard today from our witnesses many things that could be done to improve public safety in the District of Columbia. This is really part of a broader plan to help President Trump tighten his grip, to help him feel like he is in control while distracting from failed policies. Our constituents, Mr. Chairman, with the exception of Delegate Norton, are out there across the country, and they are wondering why this Congress and this committee seemingly has no time to solve the real problems they face in their communities, but seemingly all the time in the world to cosplay as mayors and council members for the District of Columbia. I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Timmons from South Carolina.
I appreciate our new colleagues' prepared remarks. I've lived in Washington on and off over the last 15, 18 years for about 10 years. And up until 2 months ago, this city was in disrepair. It was unsafe. There were thousands of homeless people that were plaguing our public spaces. There were rampant mental health issues with these people that were living in squalor. There was incredible drug use. There were muggings. There were carjackings. There were just immense unnecessary violence because our city council here in Washington, D.C. refused to do their job. They refused to keep us safe. They refused to enforce the rule of law. They have a law that says you can't sleep in federal property, that you can't sleep in the streets. You know what? Zero enforcement. Zero. So yes, President Trump took extraordinary measures which were necessary to keep this city safe because this is our nation's capital. And yes, we will delegate responsibility to local government, but when they violate the very premise that we delegate their authority for, which is keeping us safe and running the city in a safe and efficient manner, they have violated their obligation to us. And I have been working on this for the last 6 years. I've worked with the mayor. I've worked with many members of city council to try to solve this problem because a lot of it is complicated. But you know what's not? What's not complicated is enforcing the rule of law. And I hate to pick on the Attorney General, but we're going to have a little conversation. You remember criminal law. Back in the day, you went to law school, I went to law school. The two principles of justice are deterrence, which is you have a criminal justice system that says if you do this, this is the consequence. Hopefully that will deter you from doing it. Whether that's carjacking, whether it's going into CVS and stealing something, whether it's killing somebody. Deterrence is one of the principles of justice. The second principle of justice is retribution. Meaning if a loved one of mine is hurt, killed, I do not take matters into my own hands because I know that the government, that those that we have elected in positions of authority will hold them accountable to whatever degree that our society deems appropriate. I was a prosecutor for 5 years. You're the chief prosecutor now in D.C. Do you believe that the D.C. criminal justice system meets the two principles of justice that we learned week one in law school, deterrence and retribution?
Well, thank you for the question. Apparently, I also learned incapacitation and rehabilitation are other things that we think about our criminal justice system delivering. When you talk about homelessness, which we all need to continue to work as hard as we can to drive down, we have to separate out conduct from status. And I know this is something you also learned in law school.
All right, we're going to do specific examples. So in 2021, 2 teenage girls brutally murdered their Uber driver. They literally called the Uber, they lured him in, they ran over him with his own car, and when they turn 21, they will be let out. So they're going to get 3, 4, 5 years for murdering someone intentionally. Do you believe that 3, 4, 5 years for murdering someone intentionally, and by the way, I think they won't have a criminal record when they age out. Do you think that that is justice, and do you think that the victim and his family have gotten retribution?
Our system has to hold young people accountable when they commit crimes and hurt people. And when they are held accountable, they should face swift and certain consequences.
Do you think 4 years is enough for murder?
Because that's what we do to try to make our city safe.
Do you think 4 years is enough for murder?
Under our system, long punishments are not what has been proven to deter crime.
All right, that is why you are going to lose a lot of power. So again, that is why you're going to lose authority. You're going to lose power. Instead of doing that, what you should be doing, you should be negotiating with the U.S. Attorney for D.C. and say, all right, we're going to create systems through which we're going to have deterrence. We're going to say, you don't get to commit a crime and come out of jail hours later. You don't get to kill someone and have no criminal record in 3 or 4 years. That is not justice. And if you think that that is appropriate, you will have zero authority. And I'm telling you right now, you got to change your ways. I mean, the intern that was shot and killed in the midst of, I guess, gang violence, you think that when they age out, I mean, because they're being federally prosecuted, they're going to get tried as an adult. Had that not been occurred, what would happen? They would get what, 3-4 years for killing a random 21-year-old?
Mr. Timmons, nobody cares more about public safety in our city than the 700,000 of us who live here.
Yeah, and you know what? For the last 45 days, for the first time, they have been
700,000
safe
people
for
who
the
have
last
elected
45
local
days.
officials and an attorney general who reflect
For the
their
first
views
time?
on how to
Oh,
keep
no,
our city safe.
Again, you're going to lose power, you're going to lose authority because the views that you have are wrong. They're wrong, and we free DC. Yeah, DC's been free for 45 days. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent.
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from ABC News that said prosecutors already have dropped nearly a dozen cases from Trump's DC crime surge. And I want to just explain briefly, this is because
Without objection, so ordered.
Janine Pirro is trying
Chair
to prosecute
recognizes
cases
Ms.
that
Presley.
a grand
You're
jury
taking Ms.
will not
Presley's
even
time.
indict in because
You're taking Ms.
she
Presley's
is
time. Ms.
not
Presley,
actually
start the
indicting
clock.
crimes.
Ms. Presley.
Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. What we are seeing in this moment is chilling. The current occupant of the White House is sending federal troops into this beautiful majority black city. And let's be plain about who is being targeted. In this year alone, more than 93% of youth arrests in DC were of black youth. More than 40% of the arrests tied to this federal surge have been immigrants. This is not about safety. This is about suppressing black leadership, stopping black progress, and criminalizing black and brown youth. Mr. Jackson, you have an expertise in reducing crime, specifically gun violence, and you have researched what works and actually keeps people safe. We've heard a lot of rhetoric today, loud, inflammatory, dangerous, misleading at best, so let's separate fact from fiction. I'll make a statement and you'll answer with fact or fiction. Let's start. A 14-year-old has a fully developed brain.
Fiction.
Yes, that's fiction. Easy. Middle schoolers are still learning and growing. Science tells us the brain isn't fully developed until our mid to late 20s, which means children do not have the same judgment, impulse control, or decision-making capacity as adults. Yet just this week, Republicans passed legislation that would prosecute children as adults and send them to adult prisons. Children in adult prisons. Next question, Mr. Jackson, fact or fiction? The criminal legal system incarcerates black youth at disproportionately higher rates than white youth.
Fact.
Correct. That's fact. Nationally, black kids are 6 times as likely as white kids to be incarcerated. In D.C., the focus of today's hearing, the disparities are even more stark. Despite making up only 51% of the youth population, black children in D.C. are 98% of youth confinement. For too long, black youth have been disproportionately criminalized, policed, and locked up for normal adolescent behavior rather than receiving the resources and support that are proven to help them grow and reach their full potential. Last one, Mr. Jackson, fact or fiction? Trauma-informed strategies like community violence intervention help to disrupt cycles of violence.
Fact.
Correct. That's a fact. Investing in prevention, mental health, and community-based support keeps people safe. These are real, sustainable solutions. In the Massachusetts 7th, which I represent, cities like Boston, which Trump has threatened to attack next, are partnering with organizations like the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute to make these investments and are seeing historic lows in crime as a result. If Republicans were actually serious about reducing crime, they would follow that example, but they are so unserious. Instead of going after predators and pedophiles like Jeffrey Epstein, they are going after children, passing policies to ship middle schoolers to adult prisons. That is child abuse. And it is consistent with their pattern of abuse and neglect when it comes to all our children. They let children go hungry by cutting SNAP. They make children sicker by cutting Medicaid and taking away vaccines. They strip environmental protections, leaving more kids gasping for air during asthma attacks. They rip families apart with cruel immigration policies as children watch their parents taken away from classroom windows, and they ignore the strange fruit of young black men like Trey Reed hanging from the trees of Mississippi. Time and again, Republicans prove they are unserious about the care, the health, and the future of all our children. They are invested only in fear and control, and that's what they're doing here today. Republicans are certainly not keeping us safe. Free D.C.
Chair recognizes Mr. Fallon from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mendelson, thank you for coming today. You chair the D.C. City Council, and you have since 2012, is that right?
Correct.
And you've been on the city council itself since 98?
Correct.
27 years. I don't know when 98 became 27 years ago, but it is. Sir, somebody asked you if you supported soft on crime policies. Would you agree with that, or would you vehemently disagree with that?
I would vehemently disagree with that.
So do you support or oppose President Trump's executive order to federalize the DC police and permit the National Guard to assist in law enforcement
I
efforts?
did not agree with it on multiple counts. It attempted to take over the police department.
Okay.
I think
and
the
I
National
apologize,
Guard's
just
on
limited
this.
time, but you don't agree. Okay, thank you. Do you think that, sir, that DC is safe?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So that's one of the reasons why you would oppose it, because you feel it's safe already. Okay.
Well, no, that's not completely correct. I
But you do,
think
but
that
again, limited time, but
additional law
you said that
enforcement
DC
officers would be helpful.
is safe. Well, yeah, it would make it safer, but you did say it was safe. Do you know who Michael Pulliam is?
Do I know what is?
Michael Pulliam is?
Not offhand.
Okay, he was the 3rd District Police Commander. He was placed on leave
Yes.
for questionable changes to
Yes.
crime data, and then he said that leadership in MPD directed falsifying data. Do you know who Greg Pemberton is? I believe you do, because you had an interchange with Mr. Jordan.
Yes, and actually, I'd like to speak to that
Well,
because he's
you know,
tweeted
I
a
don't have the
threat of me.
time, but you do know who he is, and you know that he said that supervisors frequently ordered officers to report lesser of felonies, and you said that he was a liar. Is that correct?
Correct, and I
Okay.
can tell you why, and
Okay,
I'd like
well,
to tell
I'm not
you why.
interested in that honestly right now because we have limited time. I wish I had more time and we could talk about it.
Yes,
more.
but he has threatened
But,
me by tweet in the last
okay,
hour.
So he said that they downgraded certain categories. So the categories that aren't tracked, so very serious felonies were downgraded. So we have highly credible reports and evidence that crime data in DC has been underreported, and there's could be very likely a conspiracy to cook the books. So you said that DC is safe. So it's interesting and telling that when you compare DC to other capital cities around the world, let's say Bogota, Colombia, the murder rate is 15 per 100,000. Lima, Peru, it's 7.5. Mexico City's 11. To give it context, tourist cities like Paris, Madrid, and London are 1 out of 100,000. Do you know what the DC number is? I know it varies, but do you know the latest number?
Well, I know that violent crime per 100,000 for DC is about 1,005.
I said the murder rate. Murder rate per 100,000.
I'd have
Do you
to
know
do
what
the
that is?
math.
It's 27 per 100,000, which is much higher than some of the most dangerous cities in the capital cities in the world.
And
So
lower
if
than other
DC
cities in the
if-
United States.
Yeah, which are even worse than Honduras. So if DC was its own country, Mr. Mendelson, there's 193 member states in the UN. Where would DC rank if you just use the murder rate?
Well, I know we would celebrate the autonomy.
You'd celebrate the autonomy, and you'd be the 5th most dangerous country in the world out of
Now,
193.
sir, I live in the District of
Sir, this is
Columbia,
my
and I
time,
feel
Mr.
safe.
Chairman. I reclaim my time. 5th most dangerous country in the world, and the only ones that would beat us would be countries like Jamaica, Ecuador, Haiti, and Honduras. That's not safe. I would say that's extraordinarily dangerous. Mr. Schwab, did you refer to President Trump's efforts as dangerous and harmful?
And unlawful.
Okay, thank you. And it's interesting you say dangerous and harmful because August 11th through 25th, carjackings were down 87%, 1,200 arrests were made, 120 guns were seized, 88% of arrests had charges brought. And for a 12-day period, gloriously in our nation's capital, nobody was murdered, not a single homicide. That's an odd definition of dangerous and harmful. So there have been, unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, soft on crime policies. No cash bail. 89% of defendants last year were not held while awaiting trial, allowing adults as old as 24 to be treated as minors during sentencing. All of these policies, Mr. Mendelson, that you supported, and according to DC and statistics in the FBI, violent crimes in DC, when you took over in 1998 compared to last year, were up 46%. The precise numbers right here. So it is a dire problem. It is an emergency. There is a clear and present danger to the good and law-abiding citizens of Washington, D.C., and not just them, the tourists and all Americans, because this is a unique city. It belongs not just to the residents, but to all Americans. And it would be the 5th most dangerous country in the world. If this was its own country, Mr. Chairman, the United States would issue a travel advisory. That's how bad it is. So I would applaud, and I do applaud, President Trump's bold actions for MDCSA to make D.C. safe again. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Ms. Tlaib from Michigan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I think it's really important. I mean, we're talking about, 700,000 people that live here, and I feel like their voice gets completely just dismissed. And so, if I may, Mr. Chair, ask unanimous consent to enter the record. The Washington Post poll of D.C. residents found 8 out of 8 in 10 opposed Trump's taking over of their local police and sending in federal troops.
Without objection to ordered.
I think it's also really important to understand, like, the incredible kind of slanderous, like, defamation. I don't know what to call it. They're just burying Washington, D.C. You just heard them speak about our nation's capital in that way, in a way that I feel very much like that's not what I see. I see people walking around with their families, people enjoying time to see these beautiful, incredible, beautiful monuments and everything. And there's a pride here too. And so I just want to bring the DC residents into this committee because I feel like they are being made invisible. And this really ugly picture that is not reflective. And I'm from Detroit. I've seen it happen to my city, and it's despicable in a way that I feel like really goes up against our values. One of the things that I know in every abuse of power that, we let President Trump and the administration get away with in D.C., it will be replicated. It will be expanded across the country, and it is going to tear apart our communities. Mr. Jackson, I talked to you about a little bit about this, but I think it's important to understand that we do have a mental health crisis, that we have a housing crisis, affordability crisis. Can you police any of those away?
No.
You can't police away homelessness. And the way they talk about our homeless neighbors is so, no wonder there's violence increasing towards homeless neighbors. I see it already, the brutality of it. When we see housing costs go up, when we see, again, the lack or dismissiveness of the mental health crisis that we continue to grow. And it's not just this administration, and the previous administrations as well. No one has moved with the urgency that is needed. Just last week, the committee approved over a dozen bills regarding Washington, D.C. And, I'm just curious. Criminalize children. My colleague from Boston talked about this. It basically interfered with legislation already passed by the local government. Was anyone on this panel consulted? Any of you? Raise your hand if you were consulted on any of these bills. Yeah.
We were not.
One of the things that, AG, I've been listening to you. One of the bills actually eliminates your position completely. What effect would that have? Completely eliminating your position in regards to be able to do the job that you do to protecting all the families in Washington, D.C.
We'll start with the fact that more than 70% of the residents of the District of Columbia overwhelmingly voted for having an independent elected attorney general.
That's right.
And that's a recognition of the fact that when an attorney general is directly accountable to the people, directly responsive to the people, we are much better at doing our job in terms of addressing housing affordability and conditions in slumlords, seniors and consumers who are being scammed, addressing the issues that are most important to D.C. residents because I am accountable to them.
I read wage theft is an issue, workplace discrimination. There's a number of issues that need to be addressed, and they're not going to address that. They want to paint you all as this ugly, dark, all just out in the street. The way, it's just unbelievable because they all live here. I don't see it. I don't see what they see. I don't understand why we're allowing that to happen because I actually think it's going to hurt our communities. People are going to look at Washington, D.C. folks in a way that I think is going to be very painful, but also, I don't know, Mr. Jackson, I heard the stories. People didn't leave their homes. They weren't leaving their homes. Businesses didn't see people coming into, that's what we want in our nation's capital. Stay in your house, don't move, don't go anywhere, stay fearful. It's unbelievable that my colleagues continue again to eject this narrative and this rhetoric in regards to it. But I think it's important, Mr. Chair, just like in D.C., home rule was one out of Black freedom struggle in the fight for civil rights, we can't be passive right now.
So nobody over there should take anything we say like so personally as if we're attacking them. No, we're attacking a process. We're not attacking people here. And I think it's really important. We need to stand up against this fascist takeover. That's not a bad word. It's a fact. And here in DC and across the country, it is so incredibly important, Mr. Chair, that this committee does not allow rhetoric that defames or paints Washington, D.C. in a way that you all haven't really truly seen. You're just reading it. No, you're just reading it or something off of some.
Will the gentlelady yield to a question?
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Will the gentlelady
No, I don't
yield?
yield. I don't even have time. I can tell you.
Your time's expired.
It is expired, but
Tlaib.
Mr.
I've
Chair.
been nice.
But you all live
like
here,
Mr.
and
Tlaib.
you're not telling people the beautiful parts that you do see in our
Mr.
nation's
Tlaib.
capital. And no, it's just wrong how we're doing it.
Chairman, I think
Wrong.
it's insane that the
But you're
gentlelady
gonna
doesn't
look
have
at
an
the
argument, but she's going to
Washington, D.C. as a
refer
bunch
to
of
me and some of
criminals.
my
You yield to
colleagues.
Mr.
Chair,
Donald.
We were
you
from the
know
Third
this.
Reich. This
You're
is insane.
gonna look at
It's
14,
insane.
15-year-olds as
It's
a bunch of
insane.
criminals?
It's insane.
Oh,
Do I look like a
yes,
member of the
Donald.
Third Reich to you, Ms.
Please,
Tlaib?
please,
Is that what I look like to
please.
you?
You're the one taking your voting
Is that what
card,
you think?
giving it
Is that
to
what you
somebody,
think?
committing
Is that
a
what you
crime.
think?
No, that's unethical.
I think it's radical and I think it's insane. And I'll respect everything that you say. But to say something like that to myself and all of my colleagues is way out of line. It's way out of line. It's way out of line.
Regular order, Mr.
Way out of line.
Regular order.
That's okay. But it's okay, right?
That is not how it
It's
goes.
okay, right?
You hold yourself accountable before you talk about
Hold
Washington,
myself
D.C.
accountable.
Mr. Tlaib.
Washington, D.C.
Hold your
out
own
of your
self
mouth.
accountable. How
Keep
about
it out of
that?
your mouth.
Hold your own
I'm
self
trying,
accountable.
Mr.
How about that?
Free D.C. and make sure you
All right.
vote with your own voting card. Don't be giving it to somebody
Mr.
else.
Tlaib. All right, time. Chair recognizes Ms. Boebert from Colorado. Order. Wait a minute, Ms. Boebert. All right. Order. Ms. Boebert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This has certainly been lively today. Madam Mayor, I appreciate you being here today, and I have a few questions for you. Do you believe in regard to crime, D.C. City Council is moving the district in the right direction or wrong direction?
The city council and I are working.
Right or wrong direction?
We're moving in the right direction.
Now, okay. Why in 2023 did you veto the council's updates to the criminal code to eliminate most mandatory minimum sentences, reduce mandatory maximum penalties, and allow jury trials for misdemeanors?
Well, I made clear at the time my objections to the rewrite of the criminal code. The criminal code does
your
need to be
objection was this
updated.
bill does not make us safer. Is that correct?
That's what I believe.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Bowser, as we know, City Council overruled your veto, and the criminal code changes went into effect 2023. This same year, crime rates rose dramatically. They overruled your veto, and then we saw crime rates rise dramatically. Do you believe that this bill contributed to the dramatic rise in crime that we saw in 2023 that's been mentioned here today as well by the council?
Well, the bill didn't go into effect, but I believe that it was necessary for us to look at our entire public safety ecosystem, not just that year, but previous years.
So you had some foresight that this could help, and you said this bill does not make us safer. The council overruled your veto, and at multiple events this year, you opposed National Guard deployments in Washington, D.C. However, since President Trump deployed the National Guard in D.C., violent crime has dropped nearly 50%.
Well, Ms. Boebert, may I?
One moment. I'll
Okay.
give you a chance to respond. Since President Trump deployed the National Guard in D.C., violent crime has dropped nearly 50%. Property crimes like burglary, vehicle theft dropped about 25%. And carjacking saw a dramatic 28% decline compared to the same period in 2024. Will you admit, Mayor Bowser, that President Trump bringing in the National Guard has helped clean up this district? And if not, why have you let them stay here indefinitely?
What I have said is that the increase in federal law enforcement, National Guard is not law enforcement.
You've allowed them to stay here indefinitely, though.
The president controls the DC National Guard, and he purports to control the guards from other states.
Have you asked him to remove them?
Yes.
And you would be in favor of that? Do you think that crime would increase once again?
Ms. Bobart, I put in place a mayor's order that is a framework for how DC government will work with our federal partners.
Yes, ma'am.
And they include the FBI, the DEA, the ATF,
Yes, ma'am.
U.S.
Sorry, my time
Capitol
is short.
Police,
I don't mean to step over you.
as well as the United
I
States Secret Service.
I want to keep this respectful with you, and I don't mean to
Yes.
step over you. One more question, Mayor Bowser. Is cracking down on crime racist, as many of your Democrat colleagues have suggested?
Our police department
Yes
has
or no,
been
is it racist, ma'am?
not in D.C.
Thank you, ma'am. Chairman Mendelson, you believe that cracking down on crime is racist, correct? No? Is that not what you said? You said bringing in large numbers of federal or National Guard troops can escalate tensions, particularly in minority neighborhoods. You also stated that federal deployments can disrupt daily life, disproportionately affect minority communities, and exacerbate racial tensions. So,
Are you asking about the National Guard or law enforcement?
I said federal or National Guard troops.
I do
And
think that-
we've seen police presence decrease under this council, and funding be redirected. So I really don't care to hear
That is
how
false.
pro-police you are, because I've seen those numbers decrease over the years and funding be stripped. And so with the National
We have
Guard,
not stripped funding in 4 years.
it has happened, and
Not
crime
in
has
4 years.
increased.
What has happened in
Chairman
4 years is
Mendelson,
that
if I
we've
may,
not been reimbursed
so the
$83
federal
million by the
deployments
federal
can
government for
disrupt
police.
these things, and you said that they can exacerbate racial tensions. So is it racist to bring in?
Militarization is oppressive
Is it
to
racist?
neighborhoods.
Chairman?
No.
No. Okay, so are you redacting your statement and your
No.
position?
Militarization is a problem. I did not say that was racist, but it is a problem.
Mr. Chairman, you said that it increases racist tensions. So I would say that you are characterizing that as racist, bringing them in. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired.
Thank the lady from Colorado. Chair recognizes Mr. Min from
Chairman.
California.
Sorry, I have a unanimous consent request, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I request unanimous consent to enter into the record this May 16th, 2024 article from the Washington Post titled, "A Congressman Spared Prison as a Teen Tells D.C. to Be Tough on Youth," which covers the story of a sitting congressman who used a pretrial diversion program to
I
avoid
think the
jail
title's
time
been read,
for
Mr.
physicians
Chairman.
with intent to distribute and had a bribery charge
Mr. Chairman, the
expired.
title's been read.
And yet that is the level
Chairman,
of
the
Without
title's
all
been
you
read.
have
We're
to-
not reading the
Miss-
entire
Mr. Sorry,
document.
Mr. Chairman.
All you have to do is say the title and the publisher. So without objection.
Mr. Chairman, and since the gentlelady is referring to me, I wonder if she would like to debate the actual topic. I'm more than prepared to debate the topic. I've been doing it my entire life.
Do you want to?
You voted illegally your entire life?
Would the lady yield the gentleman from Florida?
No, it's not a debate. It's an article that obviously you admit is about you, about how you were spared prison as a teen and now want to not allow other young people
for the
that same
gentlelady, let's be very
opportunity.
clear, the article is wrong. The article is wrong, and I'm on the record stating that repeatedly. I've never been proud of what happened when I was 18 years old or 20 years old. I was wrong, and under the laws of the state of Florida, I was held accountable for that as an adult. So let's be very clear about what was written in that article, which is wrong. That does not coincide with the language that I passed off the House floor the other day. If you want to read articles and put them in the record, let's be clear about what they are. And since I'm the only subject matter expert on that article, I would like to set the record straight right now. Thank you.
All right, thank.
I'm requesting equal time. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Was the article about you, Ms. Crockett?
It was not about me.
Okay,
but
Chair
it was
recognizes
but it was
Mr. Min.
unanimous
Mr.
consent,
Chairman,
which is not debatable.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to take
Chair
on all
recognizes
comers.
me.
So I entertain
If somebody tries to put an article in about you, and I've
Well,
read
I'm
a few.
sure y'all want
but
to
we
talk
haven't
about
put
my
'em in.
private school, honey.
If somebody does, you can defend yourself. Mr. Min.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I want to be clear, though, this committee continues to fail to conduct oversight on the most important issues that my constituents care about, whether it's the allegations of chronic and extreme lawbreaking by ICE, the politicization of the DOJ, FCC, and other executive branch offices to go after Trump's critics, the repeated attacks on Congress's Article I authorities, including the illegal taxation of goods imported into the United States, tariffs, or the illegal withholding of funds appropriated by Congress, aka impoundments, and on and on and on. And incredibly, virtually the entire Republican caucus has refused to sign the discharge petition to release the entire Epstein files. Earlier this year, GOP leadership recessed early, hoping that the Massey-Khanna discharge petition would fade away. But that is not going to happen. We're going to keep fighting. We're now one vote shy of the 218
Would the gentleman
needed.
yield to a question
Four
from the chairman?
Republicans, including 3 on this committee, have been brave enough to sign that petition.
Would the gentleman
Meanwhile,
yield
the
to a
rest of the
question?
conference continues to stay silent.
Would you yield to a question from me?
Absolutely.
Are you not keeping up with the oversight committee? We have requested more information than the discharge petition. And I think you're trying to create a false narrative that this committee's not doing anything or Republicans not doing anything. This committee's been very aggressive.
I applaud
on
the work
Epstein.
that the committee is doing, but it is proceeding piecemeal, and the discharge petition, as I understand it, would require the entire release of the Epstein files. They're not inconsistent with each other. And I think
then
that
it
I
has
would
to go
urge
to
you
the Senate.
Respectfully, to
Would you
consider
want us
something
to
other.
just wait? You just want us to just drop everything in the Epstein and
I don't
wait
understand
for the
why
Senate?
the Oversight Committee can't do oversight while also signing on to the discharge petition. Because we are asking for piecemeal items from the FBI and DOJ. We are not asking, as I understand it, for the
We've
entire
asked for
Epstein
everything.
files.
We've asked for everything. Now I'll yield back to your
Thank you.
time.
And if I could have a little more time, I'd appreciate it. I urge my colleagues to fulfill our constitutional responsibilities and to do right by the survivors and sign on to that. And respectfully, Mr. Chair, I would urge you to consider that as well. But I want to turn to today's hearing because I believe this is largely political theater meant to distract us from the fact that Donald Trump is illegally deploying thousands of military troops in the streets of Washington, D.C., following on his illegal deployment of military personnel in Los Angeles. And now he's threatening to deploy the military in cities like Chicago, New York, and Portland over the objections of the local mayors and governors. Now, as a reminder, state governors have broad latitude to call up their National Guard, but the president's authority is very limited, and it is limited under Title 10 authority, which is expressly limited to 3 circumstances. 1, when the United States is invaded or in danger of invasion by a foreign nation. 2, there's a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. Or 3, the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. So I want to ask you all to raise your hands if you agree with the following question. Do you believe the United States is being invaded? I want to know for the record there are no hands raised. Do you believe there's a rebellion happening?
No.
Again, no hands raised. Do you believe the president is unable to execute the laws of the United States without the National Guard?
No.
No hands raised. That's right. Donald Trump, ironically, is using a trumped-up crisis over crime to break the law.
Will the gentleman yield?
No. In January
didn't ask us
2024, a
this
group
last
called
year.
United to Protect Democracy published a report entitled The Authoritarian Playbook for 2025, which warned explicitly that if Trump were elected, he would likely follow the same playbook used by authoritarians like Vladimir Putin in Russia, Recep Erdogan in Turkey, Viktor Orban in Hungary, and others. It outlines a number of actions they expected President Trump to take during his second term. So I want you to raise your hand if you think the Trump administration is doing the following. Issuing pardons to licensed lawbreaking.
Yes.
Raise your hands if you agree with that. Directing investigations against critics and rivals.
Yes.
Regulatory retaliation.
Yes.
Federal law enforcement overreach.
Yes.
Domestic deployment of the military.
Yes.
It probably won't surprise you to know that as this is exactly what these authors predicted Trump would take as far as actions if he were elected to second term. But one ironclad rule that is still potentially being forced is the Posse Comitatus Act, which clearly prohibits the use of military personnel, including the National Guard, for law enforcement activities unless specifically authorized by Congress, such as with the Insurrection Act. Now, I've actually asked a lot of the National Guardsmen here that I've run into on the streets whether they are allowed to assist with law enforcement, and they've consistently told me that the answer is no. I asked a guardsman just earlier today what would happen if he saw crime happening right in front of him. He said he could take pictures, videos, he could call the cops, but he's not allowed to engage. So I'm really appreciative of those who serve in our National Guard, and I'm really, really appreciative that unlike Donald Trump, they are following the law. But this is also just massively wasteful and disrespectful to our National Guardsmen who have been pulled from their families, their jobs, and their communities, all to essentially serve as human scarecrows, or even worse, to clean up our streets and do our landscaping. This is not what our Guardsmen were trained to do. It's not what they are signing up to do. It's also massively expensive. President Trump's deployment of the National Guard and Marines to Los Angeles cost over $120 million. The D.C. National Guard's deployment of 958 guardsmen will cost over $200 million. And while we don't know yet what the deployment of the 1,300 plus other guardsmen sent from other states will cost, it's likely to be much higher because we're paying for their lodging as well. So basically, we're looking at a deployment cost of over $500 million for this D.C. deployment, which is doing nothing to stop crime. You could hire thousands of cops with that money. So, Mayor Bowser, I want to ask you a question. What would be more effective in deterring and preventing crime? Deploying over 2,000 National Guardsmen at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars, or sending that money to D.C. for additional law enforcement and crime prevention programs?
And the gentleman's time's expired, but the mayor can answer the question.
I think you took up about a minute of my time, though, sir.
No, we stopped the clock. I watched.
No, you didn't, actually.
We stopped it.
It didn't stop.
We stopped it.
I would say sending the money to DC, restoring our 2025 approved budget as a start would also help. Additionally, we can do more than law enforcement. We can also assist the federal government with their parks.
I appreciate that answer, and I would just close by saying this. If Trump were serious about stopping crime, he would send greater resources to local law enforcement and try to tackle the root causes. Instead, he's illegally sending troops into our cities, even as he's pardoning criminals, defunding the FBI, and reallocating our scarce federal resources to going after nonviolent offenders. This makes, like day laborers, children, this is making our communities more dangerous, not more safe.
Chair recognizes Florida's favorite son, Mr. Donalds.
And I'd like to, with unanimous consent, introduce this article titled...
I've already recognized Mr. Donalds. You can do it in a minute. Mr. Donalds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a very interesting hearing for a myriad of reasons. Mayor Bowser, thanks for being here with us. I do appreciate you taking the time today. It was said earlier that in 1973, Congress did pass the D.C. Home Rule Act. It is known on Capitol Hill, is known, quite frankly, through our entire constitutional republic, that any Congress cannot bind a future Congress. Just like at the state level, a legislature cannot bind a future legislature. That something that is enacted can be modified or undone in the future. I was able to have a conversation with a lot of the people from the Free DC organization. Some of them might still be in the room today. And that was the constant point that we came back to. That yes, under the law passed in 1973, your position was created, the DC City Council's position was created, but the ultimate authority for the federal district is still the United States Congress, and with the signature of the President of the United States. Would you agree with that assessment?
I would agree. I would agree, and I would also add it's within the power of this Congress to advance the D.C. statehood bill. By simple majority, this Congress can, like it has done for every state in the union outside of the first 13, admit D.C. as a state.
I'm glad you actually brought that up, because one of the reasons why I opposed the D.C. statehood bill is because the Constitution and the framers were actually quite clear that they did not want the federal district per se to be leveraged by a state or any state. And I think I had conversations with several residents of D.C. who were walking through the halls of Capitol Hill when then Speaker Pelosi was bringing that up. And I asked them two very important questions. If you want to have representation, why don't we allow that property to be re-annexed by the state of Maryland, which actually provided the land for the federal district to be created? Or would the citizens of the District of Columbia prefer not to be subject to federal income taxes as a result of them not having, quote unquote, representation? What's your thought on that?
I do think it's time to talk about what the district pays and what we get back. I do think it's time to have that conversation.
And that's a fair conversation to have. I got a couple questions for you. Let's get to the business of the matter. Since President Trump authorized the National Guard to be in D.C., how much has crime decreased in the District of Columbia?
I think it's important, and I've noticed that this has happened throughout this conversation, that you talk about the National Guard and you don't talk about federal law enforcement. And the federal surge consisted of federal law enforcement, which MPD works with all the time. I'm talking about the FBI, the DEA.
Mayor Bowser, I'm really not trying to disrespect you, but how much has crime decreased?
Oh, I mentioned already and let me look at my numbers, that the federal surge produced a 39% decrease in violent crime.
39% decrease in violent crime in the nation's capital.
Let me just add, that's on top of the 6% decrease that we were already experiencing.
So it seems that the president's surge was more effective than your own efforts, wouldn't you say?
It
Last time I
accelerates.
checked, 39% is way higher than 26%. But let me move on. Let me move on.
But the full statistic is a little
Chairman,
different.
Chairman Mendelson, I didn't ask you a question.
I know,
Relax,
but the
hang
full
on.
statistic is a little different.
Actually, Chairman, let me ask you this question, because you butted in, now let me ask you.
Sure.
What is the
By
current
penalty.
status of the Metropolitan Police Department in terms of staffing? How many officers do you have on the beat?
I believe it's less than 3,100.
Okay.
Which is much lower than it should be.
Is the MPD fully staffed?
In my view, no.
Question. Hold that point. Here's the question. So is a surge of federal law enforcement into the federal enclave, which the mayor has acknowledged is the primary responsibility of the federal government, isn't it simple logic to say that the president's surge has been helpful to safety and security in the District of Columbia, Chairman?
The additional law enforcement resources has been good. We work with those different agencies all the time. There was more of it, more of a good thing. National Guard is separate, ICE is separate.
Question for you, Chairman. You just said you said something I want to expound. You've been working with the federal government during this surge
And before.
that was brought by President Trump and before.
And before.
So you've been working with him through this entire time.
With the federal, like DEA, FBI,
Okay.
MPS Park Police.
Mayor
yes.
Bowser, you would concur that you guys have been working with the President of the United States throughout this entire period, correct?
Mr. Donalds, you know I work with every president.
I know, but I'm
including President
trying to
Trump,
establish a
in Trump
baseline.
1 and in Trump 2.
And I thank you for that, Mayor
Yes,
Bowser.
that
I'm
is
just
our
trying to- I'm
job.
trying to
As
establish.
do all of we all stand ready to work with. We're unique. The District of Columbia is unique in
Mayor
that
Bowser,
we're always going to have
Mayor
a
Bowser,
relationship.
I'm out of time, so I got to reclaim.
Sorry,
I
sorry.
apologize.
Yep.
I agree, Mayor Bowser.
Yes.
The district is unique. The district is not like any other city in the United States. It is the federal enclave. I commend you and your team for working with the President of the United States to keep the district safe. I really do. I think it's important for a lot of people who are saying that they're upset with the president that your own mayor and your own chairman of the city council has acknowledged that crime has gone down while working with the president. Let's work together. Let's give peace a chance. I yield back.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Mr. Donald. Mr. Mann, I'll recognize you now for your.
I ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record an article from the USA Today entitled DC National Guard Deployment to Cost $200 million, as soldiers pick up trash, blow leaves.
Without objection to ordered.
Mr. Chairman, I actually have a point of personal privilege.
Yes, state your point.
It was raised earlier in an article about me, so let's just get to it.
I thought we did this already.
No, well, we're doing it again because your name was not raised, so now we get to do it twice. Thank you.
No.
He's being recognized for a point of privilege.
It's a point of
Okay,
personal
well,
privilege.
we gonna need
Thank
one
you very
too.
much. I don't think it's really personal for you, madam. Let's be clear about a couple of things. Yes, when I was 18 and 20, I was arrested twice. I was. I made a lot of mistakes when I was young. I've admitted them. I've had to live with them my entire life. Every day since the age of 21, I've had to purpose myself to be a better man than I was the day before. That is something that was afforded to me by the laws of the state of Florida. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And now I'm here in the nation's capital doing my job. In Florida, when I got into my trouble, I was not tried as a juvenile. I was tried as an adult because I was an adult. And since that point in time, I have worked, whether it's at the state level or here at the federal level, to make sure that our criminal justice policies and systems actually make sense and they are built to secure and protect the citizens that we all serve. That's a mission I've been on ever since.
Will the gentleman
I was 21.
yield?
I'm not going to yield because it's a personal point of privilege. It's not for you.
I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to clarify something.
So for the record, I wanted to make that point be clear. Yes, I'm the author of the DC Crimes Act. Yes, I believe that adults over the age of 18
Mr.
should be
Chairman,
held
this is
accountable
not
as
a
adults.
campaign ad
And so
for the gentleman's governorship.
this is not a campaign ad. I'm stating it for the record because it was raised by the gentle lady. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. I know you're a freshman member of the House, and I have never had a chance to meet you, but it was raised, so I wanted to provide a response because my name was brought up in an article submitted for the record. I think
Point
I'm
of
done now.
information.
I yield.
Point of
Yes,
information.
state your point.
The gentleman from Florida just referenced the bill that he authored, and I just want to clarify, is the chair aware as to whether or not under current DC law, it allows the Attorney General,
That's not a point of information.
okay, well, it's a question.
Well,
Point of inquiry.
I mean,
We gonna do an
we
inquiry.
can talk about it later.
We'll do an inquiry. I am trying to clarify.
It's not a parliamentary inquiry. All right, Chair recognizes Ms. Ansari.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to say, but we all know why you've called this hearing. This is one more attempt to cover for the Trump White House, which is itself engaged in a massive, massive cover-up to shield the president and his allies from accountability. No one is fooled as to why suddenly the President of the United States is declaring emergencies in cities across the country and deploying armed troops against American citizens, despite the fact that crime rates, at least in the District of Columbia, are at a 30-year low. This is very obviously a blatant and egregious attempt to redirect attention from a very real and ongoing crime. The crime which is the massive and epic cover-up for Jeffrey Epstein's abuse and that of other rich and powerful men who engaged with and supported him over the course of decades. Some of those very men are in the White House right now. Donald Trump wants so badly for the Epstein story to go away. Trump sued the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion for reporting about this letter. Not surprising, as we are seeing what's happening now with the alarming authoritarian attacks on the free press. This was one of many examples, but he claimed this letter didn't exist. Here it is. This grotesque, disgusting, misogynistic letter which Donald Trump sent to Jeffrey Epstein. He probably laughed. He probably thought this was hilarious, laughing about the abuse of literally thousands of underage girls at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and his powerful rich friends, and then lying about it repeatedly to this day. Why? Why lie about it? Donald Trump now claims this isn't his handwriting, which is a comical excuse, and House Republicans are covering for him. Why are House Republicans covering for Donald Trump? They're holding this absurd hearing about crime in D.C. to distract the public from the very real national issues at hand. These are the people that Trump and House Republicans are covering for. Trump's Department of Justice moved Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's right-hand accomplice in the sexual abuse of underage girls, to a minimum security prison, all to buy her silence. You know, Donald Trump sent his former personal defense attorney, who's now the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, to sit down with Ghislaine Maxwell and to transcribe her remarks word for word, releasing this liar's version of the truth to the world. Why would the Trump Department of Justice endorse a convicted liar, Ghislaine Maxwell's version of the truth? Many of us here in this room actually sat with the victims, the survivors of Epstein, and they were understandably shaken and livid by the fact that a convicted child sex abuser and trafficker was given such a massive platform to continue to spread her lies. Donald Trump did that. Trump's DOJ did that. When FBI Director Kash Patel was asked about it in the Senate, he said he had no idea why she was moved to a minimum security prison. Don't House Republicans have any interest in investigating that? No? They don't care? Instead, they want answers to the really important questions. Questions like, how many trash bags did the National Guard pick up today? Or how many traffic tickets have been given out in DC this week? Or how many drunk college students needed to have the National Guard call them Ubers so they could get home? These are the tough questions that House Republicans want answers to. So let's just be very clear. The biggest criminal in Washington, D.C., the criminal who was besties with Jeffrey Epstein and was already found liable of sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll, the criminal who should be invested not only for those crimes, but now this massive cover-up, is Donald John Trump. What I want to know is who instructed the Bureau of Prisons to move Ghislaine Maxwell? What did the Trump administration promise her to remain silent? Why is FBI Director Patel claiming that no other men victimize underage girls and women through the sex trafficking operation organized by Epstein and Maxwell, which is obviously false, and we heard as much from the women? Did House Republicans collude with the White House to change their tune on the Epstein files? And what is Donald Trump so afraid of? Why won't he just release the unredacted Epstein files, which he could do literally at any moment? Unfortunately, we will have to continue to wait to get these answers. Also, Republicans can find out how many stray cats need to be dealt with on the streets of Washington, D.C. I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Burchett from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it needs to be said that the Democrats had those files for 4 years and chose not to do anything with them, and now currently they're obsessed with it. I think that speaks volumes. But thank you all for being here. Mayor, thank you, ma'am. I was a county mayor. It was the best job I think I've ever had.
Thank you.
And on days like today, I'm sure you're thinking, dadgum, I wished I hadn't run for this office. Should have sold something. But anyway, I have a couple questions for you, ma'am. President Trump's response to the spike in violent crime in Washington, D.C. lowered the rate of violent crime?
I have already testified to the period of 30 to 34 days. We saw a decrease on top of the decreases that we are experiencing already this year.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. When you're the 435th most powerful member of Congress, I have to ask those questions again.
Yes.
So just act like you've never heard that, and I deserve a Pulitzer Prize for my questioning. Have the criminal justice policies created by the D.C. City Council led to the spike in violent crime in Washington, D.C.?
In my experience, Congressman, there is not one single thing that you point to when crime goes up, and it's usually not one single thing you point to when crime goes down. So my experience as mayor and as a member of the council before that is to throw everything at it. We look at the laws, we look at our deployment strategies, we look at our prevention strategies until we see results. And that's what we've seen over the last 2 years.
Thank you, ma'am. Why is Mr. Mendelson, why has your council continued to push these soft on crime policies when violent crime apparently has skyrocketed in Washington, D.C. as a result?
Well, I don't agree that we have done that. In fact, in my statement at the beginning, I noted a number of changes to the law that the council.
Yes, sir. Well, yesterday, though, we stepped in and have changed a couple of those laws that we felt like proved that y'all were soft on crime.
One of those was the age of 14. That actually was adopted by Congress in 1970.
Okay. What about the one where they're not allowed to chase someone who has stolen a car?
We revised that law, I believe it was last year.
Yet we had to.
When I say revised it, there were complaints we were hearing from the police chief, and we made changes to that law.
Okay. In your statement regarding oversight efforts, you stated that these bills were a completely unnecessary intrusion on the district's ability to make and enforce our laws because of the recent work that council has been doing to combat crime. Are you aware that juvenile crime in Washington, D.C. has increased every year since 2020?
I don't believe that's correct, but the data, the Attorney General would have the exact data. But I will say that juveniles should not be involved in crime. And that should be the goal of any society, of any community, and that's our goal. We do not want juveniles involved in crime. We want them in school, we want them learning, we want them to have every opportunity to achieve as an adult.
Okay. In 2021, Mayor Bowser requested $11 million for additional funding for police officers. In response, you and your colleagues on the D.C. City Council proposed a compromise package that would appropriate $5 million to police officers and various amounts to gun safety initiatives because, as quoted, because the solution can't solely be more police. Why have you consistently tried to impede the work and support systems for police officers?
Well, we haven't consistently. So that is true about 2020 for the FY21 budget. Every year since then, we have fully funded the request for MPD, for hiring officers and for paying officers. Just yesterday, we adopted a 13% pay raise for police officers. So I don't agree that consistently. I would also note MPD has a budget of about 500 million. I think it's actually more than that now. So when you talk about 5 million, I don't think that's even 1%. That's 0.1%. But that was 5 years ago.
But you'd gladly turn that money back in then? Wouldn't?
Well, in my testimony earlier, I noted that we've been asking the federal government every year for reimbursement through the appropriation process for the EPSF, and that the Congress has shorted us a total of 83 million over the last 4 years. So you can ask me about 5 million.
Over the last, how many years?
4.
4 years,
83
okay,
million.
that'd be during the Biden administration. General Schwab, did I say that right, Schwab? You said kids
You
should
did,
not be
thank you.
treated as adults. At what age does a kid become an adult?
Under our law, children are considered juveniles until they're 18.
Okay, thank you. And I'm out of time. Again, thank y'all for being here, Mayor.
Thank you.
Pleasure, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chair recognizes Ms. Crockett from Texas.
Okay, I'm gonna try to go really fast because I got a lot to cover. So I'm starting with the AG. I want you to tell me whether or not it's lawful or lawless ignoring court orders,
That's lawless.
impounding congressional funds,
Violates the law.
invoking emergency powers when there is no emergency,
Unlawful.
sending troops without an invite,
Violates the law.
covering for pedophiles. I just threw that one in there. Okay, I'll move to the next one. What about revoking birthright citizenship?
Violates the 14th Amendment of the Constitution.
How about violating due process?
Violates the 5th and 14th Amendment of the Constitution.
How about what we see happening with redistricting that would in some way minimize, if not delete, the voices of people of color as they are going through and illegally going through this process? Is there a constitutional amendment that you can think of that is associated with that?
Probably many, but it is
Okay.
unlawful and unconstitutional and
Thank-
un-American.
Thank you. As well as, can you tell me if it is lawful or lawless to violate free speech?
That's lawless.
Okay, sounds about right, because, you know, we had to have a conversation about Jimmy Kimmel, so I'm going to say free Jimmy Kimmel for sure, and hopefully we will deal with the FCC chairman. But the reason that I wanted to go through that long list, and that was actually not even the half of it, is because since this administration has come in on January 20th, they have engaged in some form of every single thing that I said on that list, even the part about covering for pedophiles. So my question is, why are we sitting here today? Number one, they already passed their bootleg laws, and it's clear that even the bill author is not well informed about what his bill does. Because as has already been stated, at the age of 18, you are an adult. So this idea that somehow 21-year-olds were now somehow juveniles under DC law, is that accurate or inaccurate?
It was inaccurate, misunderstood the way the law works.
Correct. Could not understand how to read the law and decided that they were going to rewrite the law and mess up the law. And to be clear, we were talking about judges being able to have enough discretion to decide whether or not they were going to give someone an opportunity maybe to clean their record, such as the bill author was given that opportunity under Florida law because his second felony was picked up when he was 21, to be clear. So he was older than 18. And under this law, if you were under, 25, so 24 or under, then the judges had discretion, correct?
But only in certain kinds of cases, not the most serious cases. And in fact, that discretion was, as we know, exercised very rarely. And it would have been an opportunity had the Congress wanted to talk with the folks who are involved in applying that law and seeing how it works, to understand that this is not a law that's out of sync with other states, and it's working.
Thank you so much. And the reason that it matters is because now the gentleman from Florida is trying to become a governor, and chances are maybe D.C., once they get statehood, could have had a future governor that had a second chance. But since they don't want other people to have chances that they've been given, they want to just pretend like they are bigger and better and badder than. So I will move on because I am frustrated that we are having this hearing when we know that this administration can't take care of their own business. As we know, they recently illegally bombed yet another Venezuelan boat, and we may be headed for a war. We know that this particular president has decided that he wants to shake down people as it relates to the First Amendment, because he has filed not one lawsuit, not two lawsuits, but he has filed numerous lawsuits. He filed a lawsuit against the New York Times. He filed one against the Wall Street Journal, against CBS, against ABC, against the Des Moines Register. He is doing all of this because he wants to quash any speech that is not appreciative or lauding him, which is pretty much anything that's factual. So let's talk a few facts about these January 6 felons that should still be incarcerated because they went through the process, but because they were doing things on his behalf, of course, he wanted to let them go. So they released more than 1,000 people who participated in the insurrection on this government, many of whom had previous criminal records, like Mr. Theodore Mendenforth, who was convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, or Mr. Peter Schwartz, who had 38 prior convictions, including one where he beat his wife by repeatedly punching and biting her. Trump also pardoned Mr. David Daniel, who was convicted of production and possession of child pornography. Trump also pardoned Mr. Daniel Ball, who, quote, threw an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers during the Capitol riot. He also had a record for, quote, domestic violence by strangulation. I'm not done. Trump also pardoned Mr. Andrew Taki, who sent nudes to an undercover law enforcement officer who was posing as a 15-year-old girl. Mr. Casey Hopkins also received a pardon from Trump, and Mr. Hopkins was convicted of forcible rape. According to court records, he, quote, had forcible intercourse with the victim, choked her to the point of impairing her vision, banged her head into a wall, and urinated into the victim's mouth as he humiliated her. These are the people that he decided to release in the streets of D.C. So if anybody does need to clean up D.C., I would agree it is this man, because he is the one that is causing half the crime that we have. Not only is he participating in the crime, but we know that he instigated the insurrection. And if I did say that I had one issue with the Biden-Harris administration, it is the fact that they did not move forward and make sure that this man was put where he should have been put. Because the last time I checked as a criminal defense attorney, and Mr. Attorney General, you may have a different experience, but I never had a defendant that had 34 convictions for felonies and did not spend one day in jail. Never in my life. And the last time I checked, the party of law and order is the only one that decided that they would be out of order and decided to nominate someone who was not only indicted but was actually convicted of multiple felonies. That has never happened in this country, and it is a shame that we are dealing with it now, and now he wants to tell y'all how to do your jobs.
Okay. I thought you were going to say when you had one problem with the Bidens, I thought it was going to be on the pardons, all the pardons that the auto pen pardon.
It's on the fact that they did.
Okay, all right, okay. Chair recognizes Mr. Gill from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing, and I'd also like to thank the witnesses for taking the time to be here today. I know y'all are busy, so really appreciate it. Mayor Bowser, thank you to you especially for coming here. You've been mayor for about 10 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. And during that time, would you describe D.C. as a safe city?
Yes.
You would?
Listen, Mr. Gill, and it was brought up earlier by the Congresswoman from
The murder
Detroit.
rate in Washington, D.C. is the 4th highest of any city in the country. Would you
I have
describe that as a safe
I
city?
have heard every statistic and factoid, and they're all different about where
Are you
our city.
disputing
No,
that Washington, D.C. is the 4th highest murder rate in the country?
I'm not familiar with that statistic.
You're not familiar with that
What I know,
statistic.
Mr.
This is
Gill,
your city.
Mr. Gill,
Respectfully,
excuse
this
me.
is your city.
Respectfully, I know that we have driven our murder rate down.
What was the homicide rate in 2014 before you were elected?
I don't know.
Do you know how much the homicide rate has changed during your 10 years, Mayor?
I do.
How much?
It has gone up.
It's gone up
and
by
it is
about
going
70%.
down.
It's gone up by about 70% from
I don't think that's
2014 to
correct. I don't think that's
2024. Those are
correct.
from the Metropolitan Police Department.
I
That
don't
is
think that
correct.
number is correct.
You should know the crime
Yeah, and
statistics for your own city,
I do know
especially
my
whenever
crime
it's this
statistics.
dangerous. Do you know how carjackings have trended during your time in office?
I know that they have gone down.
They're up over 500% since
Mm-hmm.
from 2014 to 2024. That's not a safe city. I don't think any person would call that a safe city. We'll move on. Do you agree that defunding the police makes our communities less safe, don't you?
This is what I want to say.
It's a straightforward question. You're not going to filibuster. Do you
This is my
think that
answer.
defunding the police
This is
makes our
my
communities
answer.
less safe?
What I know is that people have moved here. People have sent their kids here. People have started businesses here. We have record.
Does
we have
defunding the
record
police make our
visitation,
communities
and
more
so
or less safe?
those are the indications
defunding the police
of
make
a
our
city
communities
where
more
people
or
want
less
to
safe?
live, work, and
You
visit.
won't even back your own police department
You-
right now.
you-
I'm
clear-
asking you, does defunding the police make our communities more or less safe? And you won't give me a straight answer.
I've already answered that today.
And why don't you tell me again, do you think that defunding the police makes our communities more or less safe?
I've never defunded the police, nor would I.
You don't, you
What-
think it makes our communities less safe, is that correct?
I just told you, I've never defunded the police, and
I
I never
understand
would.
that. You know, you may not have defunded the police, and that's a good thing, but you did provide a $125,000 grant to an organization lobbying to defund the police. Are you aware of that?
What is that you just raised?
It's an organization called HIPS that you provided just this year, fiscal year 2025, a $125,000 grant to.
I
This
think
is
we
them
funded
lobbying
them to
defund the
do public
police.
health work.
Quote, "It's time we shifted to a society free of police and systems of incarceration."
We fund them for public health work.
For public health?
Yes.
Does this make our communities more healthful? By defunding our police?
fund them for public
Do you
health.
think defunding our police and lobbying to defund our police and undermine local
I've
law
answered that
enforcement
question.
makes our communities more safe?
I've answered
or
that
healthful?
question.
Do you think that providing tax dollars to an organization who wants to defund our police is good for the residents of Washington, D.C.?
We wouldn't fund them for that purpose. We would
But you
fund them.
funded them, and you chose to give them money. You gave them hard-working tax dollars to an organization that wants to defund the police.
We fund them for public health.
Do you think that giving housing, free housing to illegal aliens is an appropriate use of tax dollars?
We think if it keeps people off the streets, then we have to keep people off the streets.
You agree with giving your residents tax dollars and using them to give subsidized housing for illegal aliens?
But Mr. Gill, we also didn't agree with the governor of Texas or Arizona busing people, tricking
So
them to come to our city.
And it's
we
not,
didn't
not
agree with that
surprising
either.
to me because you're also funding NGOs that support free housing for illegal aliens.
And I hope you
And
would
they're
agree
lobbying for
that
You're
other
using tax
governors
dollars
shouldn't
to provide-
send people on
provide
buses that
NGOs
don't
that are
have any
lobbying to
housing
give
to our
free-
city.
Free housing for illegal aliens in your city. That makes your city less safe. I want to move on. In May of 2024, and this was referenced earlier, there were some major pro-Palestinian protests and sit-ins at George Washington University. This was during final exam season. They were terrorizing Jewish students. They were doing it for weeks. It was a major problem. The police were called in, and you stopped them from doing their job. Why is that?
I didn't stop the police from doing anything.
It is illegal for them to block a roadway. We've got the law right here. It's unlawful for a person, alone or in concert with others, to obstruct or incommode any street avenue. That's exactly what they were doing, and you refused to allow police to clear them out. Why is that?
That's incorrect.
Why would you stop? Clear the record then.
I never stopped the
You didn't
police.
stop them.
No, I did not.
You didn't stop them. Would you like to explain what happened? Why police never cleared out this roadway?
Police did clear roadways.
They were there for weeks.
Police cleared roadways.
They were there for weeks,
Actually,
terrorizing Jewish
they were
students, and this was
probably
in your
on
city.
private property, not on the roadway.
No, they were on public roadways.
No, they weren't.
Terrorizing Jewish students,
they
and you
weren't.
allowed it to happen.
No,
I
they
yield
weren't.
my time back.
No, they weren't.
Gentleman's time's expired. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I'm gonna give you time. All right, I'm going to recognize the ranking member for some unanimous consent requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I request unanimous consent to enter into the record this August 19th, 2025 article from the American Prospect titled, "The GOP states with guards deployed to D.C. have urban murder rates way higher than D.C.'s."
Without objection, so ordered.
I'd also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this February 28th, 2024 study from Third Way titled, "The 21st Century Red State Murder Crisis," which lays out the decades-long problem with high murder rates in red states and undermines the Republican myth that crime is their strong point.
Without objection to ordered.
And my final one is from Newsweek, but I don't know the date right now. But this goes to what the gentleman was just talking about when he said that DC has the 5th highest homicide rate in the country. According to Freedom for All Americans 2024 data, DC is not on this list at all. It starts with St. Louis, and number 10 is Chicago.
Without objection, so ordered. So in closing, I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. I know it was a very long hearing, but this is an issue that America's watching. This is America's city. This is the capital city. We want it to be safe. Many of us spend at least half our waking hours here in Washington, D.C. So even though it's not our official residence, we spend a lot of time here. Many of us spend more time than here than in certain parts of our district. So I want to yield to the ranking member, Ms. Crockett, for a brief closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to my colleagues for their questions and to our witnesses, Mayor Bowser, Chairman Middleton, Attorney General Schwab, and Mr. Jackson for your service and for your testimony here today. I appreciate all of your voices and your leadership to fight for DC and its rights. You debunked a lot of misinformation today. Washington, DC is a great American city which deserves to govern itself like any community in our country. If Donald Trump wants to run DC, he should resign as president, I'm here for it, and run for mayor. Congress should not waste time undermining this city's elected leaders. We will continue to work with you all to support real public safety through smart policies that support communities and hold criminals accountable. We will work with you to tackle gun violence and to protect the rights of every American. Our committee will not ignore the real crime at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We need to stand up for free speech and against corruption and weaponization. Chairman Comer, I appreciate your commitment to work with us to hear from FCC Chair Brendan Carr, which I think is the most alarming news of this last week. I hope both sides of our committee are opposed to the President of the United States picking and choosing late-night TV hosts. It is ridiculous and dangerous. I'd like to thank our witnesses once again for your testimony today, and thank you for your service. I look forward to working with you throughout my time on this committee.
Thank you. And let me say, DC crime reached new levels over the last several years. President Trump finally tackling the crime crisis with the deployment of federal law enforcement. We are thankful to President Trump for wanting to tackle the crime crisis in this country. That was an issue in the presidential election, and it was an issue which every poll shows was important to voters all across America, especially urban and suburban voters. So we commend him for sending troops into the cities to support what local law enforcement we have. And I know, Mayor Bowser, I appreciate you and your leadership in the city. I know you're in a very difficult position as mayor. We believe that a lot of the problems stem from a lack of accountability where our law enforcement's hands are tied in Washington, D.C., as well as our juvenile justice rules and laws and system is not where it should be to hold the most vicious criminals accountable, regardless of their age. And I think you're doing a good job in a tough position. We disagree with a lot that the council has done. We would love for the Attorney General to be more aggressive. Hopefully the legislative agenda that the President supports, that we've passed out of this committee, hopefully it'll become law, and we can see if those new laws help hold people accountable and lower the crime rate in Washington, D.C., which is what the goal of this committee is. It has nothing to do with race. This has nothing to do with discrimination. This has nothing to do with picking on Washington, D.C. This is our home, too, and we want to make Washington, D.C. safe. We have employees here, and we have a whole lot of constituents that come here every day. And we want to make this city safe, and I think we can work together, and I look forward to working with the council, Chairman Middleton, with the mayor, with the Attorney General, and with everyone, all the stakeholders in Washington, D.C. In the same collaborative way that we were able to bring the Washington Commanders back to Washington, D.C. In the same way we've passed the Show Up Act, which I think's been part of the economic development woes in the city. Remember, under President Biden, he extended the work from home agreement or whatever they had with the federal employees. And, you have government agencies that for years didn't have employees going into those offices. That affected restaurants, that affected food vendors, that affected a lot of the local economy. And we've passed a bill in here, the Show Up Act, to try to get those federal employees to come back to Washington, D.C. to work like the rest of us have to do. So I think we've demonstrated that we've worked together in the past to do things to help Washington, D.C., and I hope we can do that in the future. Because, again, our goal is to make this city safe for everyone. So with that, and without objection, all members have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.